Welcome to Small Business Celebration. We're continuing our series on small business owners who are getting the move on. And our guest this week, well, she is guiding our businesses to grow and move with multiple generations. This is Small Business Celebration. Welcome, where we chat with real business owners who have real success and learn from them about what works, what doesn't, and who want you to know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and it's not a train. Join us where you can learn something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business. Welcome to Small Business Celebration, and our guest this week is Robin Paggi, the owner of Human Resource Development by Robin Paggi. Welcome to Small Business Celebration.
Thank you.
And for visionaries who don't know who you and what is it that you do?
My name is Robin Paggi. I am the owner of Human Resource Development by Robin Paggi, and the title pretty much says it all. I try to develop human resource. And that is human beings who work for business owners. So I spend most of my time creating and delivering training workshops to supervisors so that they will inspire people to perform instead of inspiring them to quit, file lawsuits, and those types of things.
Now, one of the reasons we're talking with Robin today is because I had the privilege of listening to her speak earlier this week. And she was talking about Generation Z. And for those of us that are Generation X's, some of us in Generation Millennials, this is a very hot topic right now because it's the new infusion into the workforce. And I can't wait to start talking about this because this is fascinating stuff and crucially important for a lot of business owners that are involved in growing their business. But before we do that, we have to get a little perspective. Tell us, how did you get involved with all this? Did it just, you wake up one day and say, you know what, I think I'm going to go into HR?
Yeah, and that's funny. I was asked one time by a young person, did you always want to be in HR? And my answer was, I never wanted to be in HR. What I wanted to do, I found out when I was an undergrad at Cal State Bakersfield and I was getting a communication degree, I wanted to be a communication professor.
Right.
I thought that being in school for the rest of my life would be exactly what I wanted to do, and I couldn't be a student for the rest of my life. So if I were an instructor, then I would be living the dream. And so I got a master's degree in communication studies, and I got a job at Bakersfield College teaching public speaking, the dreaded speech class that nobody wants to take. And I was working part-time and wanted to get in full-time. And then I ran into a woman who was the director of the Center for Professional Development through the Kern Community College District. She happened to take aerobic classes from me. I was an aerobic instructor.
Okay.
She took my aerobic classes. We ran into each other at BC, and we both said, what are you doing here? And she had no idea that I taught. I had no idea she was the director, and she said, I've got a project that I need some help on. Would you be interested? And that project was going into a local business and providing some training workshops on communication.
Right.
I did it, and I loved it. One of our clients was the city of Bakersfield, and they asked if I would go to work for them full-time to train city employees.
Right. And
so that was, the timing was right on that, and so I did that.
Then you made the bridge to Klein, Dinatale, Goldner. And for visionaries who don't know, it's a rather sizable law firm here in Kern County. They specialize largely in HR, do they not? Or is that just one of their facets?
No, that was just one of the departments. So they specialized in just about every kind of civil law that there is.
And how did you get involved with them and why?
I was giving a presentation at the local Human Resources Association. It's called SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. And one of the people in the audience was Jay Rosenlieb. Now, I knew Jay a little bit from church, but not well. But Jay was in the audience. He heard my presentation at SHRM, and he said, I'd like you to come present at Klein Dinatale. So they wanted me to come on board, do internal HR, and then also train with their clients. And I told told them, and them being Jay Rosenlieb and David Blaine, I told them, I don't know enough about HR to be an HR manager. And they said, that's okay, we will teach you.
Right.
And so they taught me human resources from the employment law perspective.
And then you decided, for some strange reason, you've had good, safe, comfortable, reliable jobs working for the city, working for Klein, Natali Goldner. What possessed you to go under the stress and the strain and the headaches of owning your own business?
Well, there was another little step in there before that happened. And so about 10 years ago or so, some of us at Klein Natali left and went to an organization called WorkLogic HR. And so I was there for almost 10 years before going into my own business. And so WorkLogic HR was locally owned and operated. And I created a client base there, and I was in a very unique position there because I didn't work with the other employees for WorkLogic clients. We had our own little client base, and I continued to work with those clients for the most part. And so I was basically a revenue source for WorkLogic, which worked very nicely for me. It was a very unique position, and it was a great position. So I essentially had my own little business there because the attorneys were doing their things and WorkLogic folks were doing their things, and Robin ended up doing her thing. And so I had my own little business there, and I brought in a source of revenue, and in return I got a nice salary and benefits and bonuses and all of those types of things. So it was a great situation for many years.
So nothing has really changed?
Not too much, no. And especially because during the pandemic, I was working from home for the most part, or working out of my home. And so it was not a big change. And so the clients that I had served over the past 10 years were kind of my clients, even though WorkLogic was receiving income from the training that I was doing.
In the next segment, we're going to talk about how do you communicate with a whole variety of different generations all in the same workplace. But before we do that, if Visioneers want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
I do have a website. It's HRD by Robin Paggi, Human Resource Development by Robin Paggi, HRD. And on my website, it does list my email address and my phone number. And so it also lists all the services I provide, the training workshops that I provide, everything like that. And so it's a great place to get all the info people need.
Social media?
I am on LinkedIn and I am on Facebook, and so easy to find me there as well.
Just go into the search menu and search bar, I should say, and type in Robin Paggi, Paggi.
That's it.
And if you enjoy Small Business Celebration, go ahead and like, subscribe, and notify. And we're going to talk more about that complicated workplace and communication when we come right back.
Hi, I'm Dr. Hugh Beatty, the Wellness Doc, also known as TWD. If you find that you suffer with chronic joint problems in your shoulders, your hips, and your knees, and it's impacting your performance at your business, you need to come see me for a thorough evaluation. These joints, if they have degenerated and you want to avoid surgery, you should consider PRP stem cell. It's a regenerative process, so you can begin to perform once again at your peak performance. Please come see me, Dr. Hugh Beatty, the Wellness Doc.
Reach out to Hugh Beatty, MD, the Wellness Doc, at 661-395-0315. That's 661-395-0315. Or visit him online at hughbeattymd.com. That's HUGHBEATTYMD.com. I'm here with Robin Paggi, the owner of Human Resource Development by Robin Paggi. And our Visioneer question comes from Alon, who asks, I'm in Generation Y, and I have several employees that are Boomers, Generation Xers, and Gen Z. How do I reward a good job for one without alienating the other employees?
Well, one of the things is to discuss what they mean by reward versus recognition. And sometimes people use those terms synonymously. I don't necessarily. Rewards to me means money for the most part. And recognition often is just verbal praise. And so that's one of the things I would ask Milan, do you mean money, rewarding money? And that's one of the things is that I think if you have a boomer who's been doing the job for a long time,
Right.
and you have a Zer who's just started on the job,
Right.
it's very important to have metrics in place so that you reward based upon metrics. And so that is consistency and the perception of fairness.
Are the metrics different based on the skill set? Because I would guess that a boomer may have been making XYZ widget for 20 years, whereas the Generation Z, this is their second week.
If you were to say that in fairness, the Zer should be able to be rewarded the same as the boomer so that they aren't unhappy about the fact that somebody's getting more, then that is unfair to the boomer because of their 30 years of experience.
Right.
And so that's why metrics are so important. And I'm talking about producing things like coffee cups. And so if you say for every coffee cup you produce, you'll get $1, and the boomer is able to produce 30 in an hour and the Zer is only able to produce a couple in an hour, then it might seem unfair, but if you don't reward the boomer for the years of experience, then you're going to lose the boomer. And so the thing is consistency and the same level of standards for everyone involved, and that is what is fair there. However, conversely, when it comes to recognition, usually the boomer doesn't need as much recognition as the Zer does.
I've been doing this for 30 years. I can do this fine.
Well, and not only that, but if you were to tell the boomer, hey, you did a great job today, you did a great job today, that might be demotivating because it sounds condescending.
Right.
But that's exactly what the Zer needs.
Right.
And so you can see how, first of all, one size doesn't fit all.
Right.
And you have to give people what they need in order to get back what you need, which I think is a major life principle. If everybody would just understand that for every action, there's a reaction. And
Right.
if you fill people's needs, then they tend to fill your needs. But recognizing that one size does not fit all. And you do have to have metrics that are consistent, but at the same time, you need to recognize people in the way that inspires them, as opposed to seeming condescending to them.
We've spoken about boomers and Z. Now let's talk about the ones in between.
Yeah.
So if you have, we'll use the coffee cup analogy. You've got a Generation Xer. How would you go through and apply the recognition to a job well done for an Xer?
Well, one of the things I think it might be helpful is just explaining a little bit more about the generations and where people fall and that type of thing, because not everybody has a common knowledge of that, even though they've heard the term. So baby boomers were born between 1946 and 1964 for the most part. And so the youngest boomers are getting close to 60 at this point. And the oldest boomers are retiring in droves. And baby boomer generation was named by a census worker who, after World War II, noticed that, wow, we've got a lot of babies being born. And that census worker used the term and it stuck. And so that's the baby boomers, and remembering that the youngest of them are turning 60. So Gen X came afterwards, and Gen X is about 1965 to about 1976, 77. The cutoff for Gen X is not as solid as it is for baby boomers, because from 1946, baby birth rate went up for 18 years, and then it dropped in 1964. And the reason that it dropped was because birth control pill became available. And so that's how that line is distinguished. With Gen X, the end date is a little fuzzier, but Gen X came of a time when divorce rates skyrocketed. Lots of them grew up in single-parent households. They're called latchkey kids because they came home and took care of themselves, and often younger siblings, until the parents got home.
That was also during the period where you started seeing a lot more double income households. You had both parents leaving to go to work.
Right. Yeah. And a big part of that was during the boomers' formative years, growing up years. There were civil rights legislation, and employers could no longer refuse to hire women
Right.
for jobs and had to pay women the same amount of money. And so that action then had a reaction
Right.
with divorce rates going up and dual incomes and that type of thing. So Gen X, smallest generation in the workforce in the world. And as a result of their formative years, a lot of them were very independent and don't tell me what to do, I know how to do it. And skeptical.
Guilty.
Yeah,
Guilty.
skeptical because of going through Watergate and just a lot of sports heroes and politicians and people who were held in high esteem tumbled as a result of being human. Gen Y came after Gen X, and then somebody wrote a book and called them millennials, and then that stuck.
Right.
And so Gen Y and millennials are the same generation, and they started around 1980 or so, and then cutoff for them is about 1996. And these are what we call digital natives because technology really flourished during the Xers, and so millennials were pretty much born into it and had a lot more technology to help them do things like research homework for, I'm the end of the boomer generation, and we had to go to the library to copy our homework
What's a library?
Right, exactly. So millennials really benefited a lot from technology and became much more savvy in it and kind of depended on it.
Aren't they also the first generation that has never known peace? Because 9/11 hit,
Right.
and then the economic swings have been up and down and all over the place. They're the first ones who've never known a consistency.
Right, and with millennials, I mean, what defines us as a generation are really world or national events that happen to a group of people when they're basically in high school, because when you're in high school, that's when a lot of your personality and intelligence and all of that is forming, and those events tend to really affect people at that time. And so millennials, 9/11 was their main event.
Right.
And so beforehand, we had relatively peace. I mean, we had Vietnam and we had Korea, but then we didn't have anything for a while.
Right.
And then we had the Gulf War, and the millennials got to experience all of that. So so a big shakeup. Also with millennials, parenting styles change tremendously.
I'm not going to be like my parents.
Exactly. And, that's pretty natural. But with my generation, it was children are to be seen and not heard.
Right.
And if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. And with millennials, parenting styles changed very much. And so instead of getting a whipping, you get a timeout. And not to say one is better than the other, it's just that they were very different.
Right.
And so as a result of that, millennials are different than boomers are and have different expectations of how things are supposed to be. Also, one of the things that happened was education system shifted tremendously. And so when my brothers and I were going to high school, I remember having homework. I don't remember my brothers ever doing homework. However, they graduated from high school, and so there you are. But now, especially with Gen Z, I mean, those kids have so much homework and so much school and all of that kind of stuff. And so it's very different. One of the things with boomers, about 50% of us worked during high school, including myself. And so by the time I graduated from college, I had about 10 years of work experience. With Gen Z, and Gen Z started about 1996, so they were born around 9/11, but they don't remember it. And so that's the definition between millennials and Gen Zers. Do you remember 9/11? No, then you're in that generation.
Got it.
And so with Gen Zers, only about 19% of them work during high school, and a lot of it's because school is just so rigorous compared to what it was. And then also parenting styles change very much too. Boomers my age, usually you're 18, you can't wait to get out of the house and be on your own and do your thing. I wasn't out of my house at 18, but I think I was an anomaly. But with Gen Zers, so much of them are geared toward college, and you've got to get into a good school, and so not going to work because you've got to focus on that. And then so sometimes you get Gen Zers who graduated from college, and because the oldest ones are that age, and they don't have any work experience. And so they land in a workplace where they have a boomer boss or an Xer boss who is not prepared to manage a Zer who has no work experience whatsoever.
They don't even know how to punch a time clock.
Well, there are not time clocks anymore,
See, but that's
for the most part. But yeah, so the expectation that older managers usually have of younger managers are wildly incorrect. And a lot of times we think that if we have a certain knowledge, then it's common knowledge. And that's one of the things that I tell supervisors: get the term common knowledge out of your vocabulary, because you will be frustrated so much that your blood pressure will go up. And when your blood pressure goes up, all sorts of bad things happen to you. So you've got to know that there are differences in the generations.
You wrote the book on this.
I wrote a book on it.
Okay.
It's not the book on it, but it's a book.
And show Visionary Nation the book, and go ahead and hold it up to the camera. And for those listening on the podcast, what's the name of the book and the authors?
Managing Generation Z, and the subtitle is How to Recruit, Onboard, Develop, and Retain the Newest Generation in the Workplace. And during the pandemic, I spent part of my time co-writing this book with a young woman named Kat Klaus. And Kat is an educational consultant here in Bakersfield. She has her own business, which is called March Consulting. And she has worked with Gen Z extensively, day in, day out, helping them apply for colleges for the most part. I mean, it's much more complex than that, but that's the easy answer. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this book is because going out and training with supervisors, and I would have so many supervisors who would talk to me about the fact that I don't know how to manage these kids. And so it's the manual on how to manage these kids.
Also available at Russo's Books. So you can go ahead and go online, go to the website, russosbooks.com, and find it there. Now, I have to ask you, I shouldn't say I have. I want to ask a very personal question. And it's something that a lot of women business owners struggle with. In doing a little bit of research prior to our conversation, I noticed all of your headshots are of this lovely brunette. Then COVID hits. And now you're a silver fox.
Yeah.
and for me, having silver hair is not something to be ashamed of. It's, for me, it's a sign of personal inner strength. But this is not the case for a lot of women. You know, it's okay for men to be silver and whatnot. So walk us through that for your personal experience and your journey on that, because I think this is important for a lot of women to know.
I colored my hair probably since I was in my mid-30s, probably. And one of the reasons for that is because silver hair, gray hair is associated with old people. And especially for women, you don't want to be old. And the whole thing, you never ask a woman how old she is. I have no problem saying I'll be 60 in December. I've got no problem with it at all, because I think that it demonstrates I've got a lot of years of experience in doing things as opposed to not. And so I colored my hair to prevent people from thinking that I was older than I was. And then, pandemic hits, and I didn't go to the hairdresser because I wasn't supposed to. And but one of the things prior to then, I considered going gray or letting my hair go gray. And I had some feedback from close family members that maybe that wasn't the right move. And so during the pandemic, my attitude about a lot of things changed, as a lot of people's did. And we got a better perspective of what's important and what's not, and that kind of thing. And so going back to the hairdresser, when it was time, I said, I'd like to do a dual thing. So this is not all natural, I will say. It's a weave. I have no idea what my natural hair color is at this point. But it's been very freeing. And one of the things also is that I've had so many compliments about it. And now I look at some people in my life who are still doing the full dye job. And I'm thinking, you are being controlled. you are stuck, and just let go. And then part of it is that I'm very lucky in that my ancestors had very nice gray hair, and so I inherited that from them. But I would say that more people than not have said, I like that, I want that, tell me who your hairdresser is, tell me what you do, all of that kind of stuff. And I received a message the other day from somebody that I knew in Leadership Bakersfield 25 years ago, and she said, I just saw your latest headshot that was in an article you wrote in the California, and she said, you look better today than you did 25 years ago when I met you. And so I think that allowing, and in that headshot, allowing me to be me, you have a confidence that goes along with that, and that's what people see, I think.
And we'll be right back. The reason we're talking with Robin Paggi today is because of a Visioneer question that came from a Visioneer just like you. We had a Visioneer that wanted to know, basically, how do I deal with Generation Z? So if you've got a question, you've got a thought, something that you'd like to learn about here on Small Business Celebration, reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and let us know. It's your questions, it's your thoughts, things that you want to know as a business owner that we can answer for you here on Small Business Celebration. So reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram today. I'm here with Robin Paggi, the owner of Human Resource Development by Robin Paggi, and our Visioneer question comes from George, who asks, as a Generation Xer, how do I talk to a Generation Zer employee about their potential mental illness without being sued?
Very carefully.
Okay.
So one of the things about Gen Z that people should know is they have grown up during a very turbulent time, and it has impacted their mental health. Prior to COVID, this generation reported more mental illness than previous generations. Now, one of the things about that, though, is previous generations didn't talk about their mental health.
I'm fine.
Exactly.
I don't need any help.
Yeah,
Right.
and so that, I mean, we can't just say, oh, okay, they've got more mental health issues because they are reporting more mental health issues. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. And then another thing is that they have grown up with the words anxiety and depression and those types of things in their vocabulary, much like millennials grew up with the word harassment in their vocabulary.
Oh, sure.
So when I was younger, we didn't have those words in our vocabulary.
Yeah.
We didn't use them. And as a matter of fact, harassment wasn't even against the law for a long time during our formative years. So that's one of the things, too, is that sometimes they think that they are anxious and suffering from anxiety when, in fact, maybe they're just nervous about something. So that's one of the things to recognize as well. Having said all that, they have every right to be anxious and depressed because of what they are experiencing. Now, we're all experiencing the same thing, but we don't experience it the same way. Right. And so, for example, 9/11. When 9/11 happened, I was 38. It's different processing what happened when you're a 38-year-old as opposed to when you're a 14-year-old. So that's one of the things we have to remember. And even about COVID, a phrase that I have seen and heard is, we all were in the same storm, we were not in the same boat. And so that's something, even though we all have the same experience, we don't experience it the same way. And that's something that employers really need to keep in mind. Mental illness and mental disability are two different things. There are a lot of us who have mental illnesses. Right. They are not mental disabilities. Mental illness becomes a mental disability when it impacts a person's ability to perform a major life function, such as breathing, eating, working, sleeping, etc.
So just because I have ADHD and I take Adderall to do that, doesn't mean that the employer can come to me and or I can go to the employer and say, oh, I can't do this job because I have a mental illness.
Exactly. All right. So a healthcare provider needs to provide notification that this employee has a mental disability, and these are the following restrictions.
Got it.
So that's one thing. And then the other thing is that it depends upon how large the business is. So if an employer has 5 or more employees in California, then they have to adhere to the Fair Employment and Housing Act,
Right.
and this is where this stems from. If they have fewer than 5 employees, that law does not apply to them, and they do not have to comply with it. And so that's one of the things, the more employees you have, the more employment laws
Right.
you have, and it's important for employers to understand that.
You mentioned in the last segment, you're an aerobics instructor.
I was.
And first of all, why aerobics?
Well, one of the things when I was younger, I was in dancing. My senior year of high school, I went to South High School, and my senior year, I got to be the head revelette.
Ah,
And so junior year, we tried out for various positions. And probably toward the last day of my junior year, the drill team instructors brought me in to the gym, and they said, here's the uniform that you will be wearing next year as head revelette, and so try it on. And I did, and it was too small. And I said, I need a larger uniform. And they said, no, that's it. So you got to fit into that uniform
wow.
by the time you come back to school. And so my mom and I went to a gym, and it was a little women's gym, and started working out, and that's where I got into aerobics. And so I liked it because it was kind of like dancing
Sure.
at the time. This was the 80s.
Right.
And then after a while, I was asked if I would like to lead the aerobic classes, and then I became certified in it, and it's something that I did for about 20 years.
What did you learn as an aerobics instructor that you applied to your business?
It's all about how you lead people.
so?
And that's one of the things. I work out at a little Pilates studio now, and there is an instructor there. And all of the instructors are very good, but there's one instructor in particular who is outstanding. And one of the things that she does is she shows us all these complicated moves. And then she acts surprised when we're actually able to do the moves.
Right.
And the reason that we try to do the moves is because of her demeanor toward us. And she epitomizes what a leader is supposed to be. Now, supervisors, leaders are supposed to get results from the people that they supervise. And it's all in how you lead people, whether you're going to get those results or not. And so one of the things, she's very encouraging. And she'll walk around and she'll point out, oh, I love your form. You've got great form here. Or, hey, way to try. Or, I saw that improvement there. That was really great. And so she's not just saying, hey, everybody, you're doing well. She's pointing out specifically what people are doing. And she's not just doling it out.
She's being authentic.
She's being authentic.
Praise,
all right. So you can tell when somebody's, wow, you're really nailing that move versus, hey, way to try. I see that you're trying there. And so, so that's one of the things that she does. And so it's the same principles, whether you're leading an exercise class, whether you're leading thousands of employees. It's the same kind of leadership principles. Another thing that she does is that she works out with us. And so that's one of the things leaders usually, they need to be in the trenches with people or at least know what their jobs are, as opposed to I'll sit in my office and I'll tell you what to do. And so that's one of the things, she is doing those moves for us, and she's telling us, I'm feeling your pain and we're almost there and all of that kind of stuff. And so that's one of the things too, is that she's not just standing there telling us, come on you guys, you can work harder. She's right there with us doing it.
What is one piece of business advice that you have given over and over and over again that nobody listens to?
I don't know that nobody listens to it, but the thing that I often say in leadership classes more than anything else is just lead by example. If you just do that, then a lot of it falls into place. So I've seen business owners have the do as I say, not as I do. And one example, a business owner allowed employees to wear jeans. And then somebody wore some jeans that were inappropriate, and so nobody gets to wear jeans anymore. And then I walked into the business shortly after that decree, and the business owner was in jeans. And I said, what's up with that? And he said, well, I can wear whatever I want. And so there's just an awful lot of that happens when I'm the business owner and I can do whatever I want, but you need to do what I tell you to do. And that just doesn't work, just like in parenting, that doesn't work.
Regardless of generation.
Regardless of generations, the do as I say, not as I do just doesn't work.
Well, Robin, this has been a privilege. Thank you for joining us. If Visioneers want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
I do have a website.
Okay.
It's HRD by Robin Paggi, Human Resource Development by Robin Paggi, HRD. And on my website, it does list my email address and my phone number. And so it also lists all the services I provide, the training workshops that I provide, everything like that. And so it's a great place to get all the info people need.
Social media?
I am on LinkedIn and I am on Facebook, and so easy to find me there as well.
Just go into the search menu and search bar, I should say, and type in Robin Paggi, Paggi.
That's it.
And speaking of books, what is the name of your book and where can we get it?
Again, Managing Generation Z. And I'm happy. I've got copies myself that I'm happy to hand deliver. But also my favorite bookstore, Russo's Books, carries it as well.
Russo'sBooks.com.
There you go.
And I'll be right back with my final thought.
Hi, I'm Dr. Hugh Beatty, the Wellness Doc, also known as TWD. If you find that you suffer with chronic joint problems in your shoulders, your hips, and your knees, and it's impacting your performance at your business, you need to come see me for a thorough evaluation. These joints, if they have degenerated and you want to avoid surgery, you should consider PRP stem cell. It's a regenerative process, so you can begin to perform once again at your peak performance. Please come see me, Dr. Hugh Beatty, the Wellness Doc.
Reach out to Hugh Beatty, MD, the Wellness Doc, at 661-395-0315. That's 661-395-0315. Or visit him online at hughbeattymd.com. That's HUGHBEATTYMD.com. A chip in your pocket. The other day I was talking with a Visioneer, a fan of Small Business Celebration, and we were talking about goal setting for next year. Yes, Visioneers, it's that time of year. We're already thinking about next year. And we were talking about goal setting and things that work and things that don't work and things, more importantly, that motivate you to get those things done. And one of the things that she remarked at is that when it comes to goal setting, the things that tend to work for her are not the positive motivators, the sunshine, the rainbows, the glittering unicorns of life, but rather anger, irritation, and frustration. And she was wondering, is this normal? Is this healthy? And then I recalled an old phrase that says, a chip on the shoulder means a chip in your pocket. Meaning, if you have a chip on your shoulder, you're irritated, you're angered about something, you're more likely to do something about it. After all, when we take a look back in history, history is full of people who changed the world because they were angry at something or someone, or they didn't like the way something was done and they knew they could do it better. So, in the short term, yes, anger, irritation, and frustration can be a powerful motivator, but it comes with a warning. Too much anger, too much irritation, I should say, and frustration can lead to unhealthy things long term. But in the short term, a chip on the shoulder can be a chip in your pocket. I hope you enjoyed our conversation this week with Robin Paggi, the owner of Human Resource Development by Robin Paggi, and I hope you learned something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business, and we'll see you here again next week.